The Philadelphia Eagles end the regular season 14-3 with the division victory over the reeling New York Giants. Tanner McKee shined in his first career start, while members of the defense made a claim for bigger roles. Welcome to the Philly Film Room Podcast. The Philadelphia Eagles wrap up the regular season and now set their sights towards the playoffs and the Green Bay Packers. But before we get to that, I want to make a public service announcement and let you guys know that today's format is going to be a little bit different than previous podcasts. First, the Eagles played almost all backups in their game, and I know most people are looking forward to the preview of the Packers game, so I don't want to spend too much time reviewing this past game. We have all offseason to talk about some of these backups and how they have potentially earned bigger roles, may see a reduction in their role, or maybe we are looking for some of these guys to step up next year, right? But we have plenty of time to talk about those guys in the offseason. More importantly, what I want to discuss is that the format of this podcast and this channel overall is going to change going forward. I hinted at it, after the Cowboys Reviewed podcast. I talked about there needed to be some year-end reflections, and there's been some reflections over the past season of what this channel has become and what I'm hoping for it to be going forward. So this format is going to change for a few reasons. Number one, this audience has been built mainly through YouTube. About 99% of the people that watch this channel are watching on YouTube, as opposed to some of the podcast platforms out there. I've really been, when I started doing the podcast around May, I was kind of trying to blend and add more content to what I had already been doing, which was pretty much just straight videos with me, not on camera at all, just breaking down the game and certain players, right? But as the podcast grew and developed, I was kind of blending both worlds, the podcast world and the YouTube world. And it's really kind of made the quality of the product not as good as it should be. And it's also hurt viewership and growth of the channel as well. It's kind of hard for the fans to sit there and watch an hour-long conversation where some of the time I'm showing plays about what I'm talking about on screen, but then there might be 5 minutes straight of mine or Eric's ugly mugs on the screen, right? So I don't think that's conducive for what people come to YouTube to do. And when you look at the analytics and other people out there, other people's channels out there, I can see that the viewers of this channel, they tend to view other channels where most of the episodes are about 10 to 15 minute videos. And I've also gotten feedback from other people when they have tried to share the podcast to other people that the videos are just too long. They complain that it's 40 minutes to an hour long. So what I think is best for the future growth of this channel is to really condense down these episodes and make them shorter but more focused episodes. So having said that, as long as the season goes on, and hopefully it's another 4 weeks of us, or 4 games of us reviewing and previewing games, right? As long as the season goes on, Monday nights is going to be an offense or defensive review, and then Tuesday nights we'll have the opposite review. But remember, it's going to be shorter episodes and more condensed. And then Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays will be when we get into some of our preview episodes, and those episodes are going to detail things like the skill position preview will be one episode, offensive line versus defensive line will be another episode, and then the schematic preview will be another episode as well, right? Now, there's still going to be long form content for the people that want to hear me talk at length, but that's going to be more live content, whether that's going to be directly on this channel or if I'm going to be branching out and joining other podcasts as a guest on those channels. I've been doing live shows on the 4133 podcast on Fridays. That's going to continue on throughout the rest of the season as well, and that's going to stream on this channel going forward. But come the offseason, there's going to be 10 to 15 minute content breaking down the Eagles contract situations, free agents, trades, the NFL draft, all of that stuff. But I think just for the growth of this channel, it's going to be best if we move towards a shorter style, but more condensed. And when you look at the fact that I've been pumping out these 40 to 60 minute episodes twice a week, I could really be pumping out daily content where I could be doing all the same work and put that stuff out on shorter episodes every single day of the week, essentially, right? And from there as well, I can dive into more specifics and have some very detailed and scripted stuff where I can really dive into the nitty gritty of some of the play design, some of the execution, and what the players are doing on the field. Now, having said that, we are going to jump into today's episode, and today's episode is mainly going to focus on Tanner McKee. Again, like I said, we're going to save a lot of the conversation for some of the stuff that we saw in this game for later in the offseason. I don't think right now people want to hear me talk about how Darian Kennard looked pretty good, and I think he might be the swing tackle of the future. We'll save that for a future episode. But having said that, let's jump into today's episode. And when we look at Tanner McKee, he was the main driver of the offense, especially in a game where the rushing game struggled to get going. The Eagles running backs combined for 46 yards on 21 carries, and a big part of that was the fact that the offensive line just did not hold up their end of the bargain. Not just the offensive line, but tight ends. Johnny Wilson missed some blocks, and Nia Smith was late on a couple blocks. So it wasn't so much what the backs were doing. It's kind of to be expected when you have backup offensive linemen playing in the game, right? When we look at Tanner McKee's stat line, he was 27 of 41 passing for 269 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions. Overall, he was quick and efficient getting through his reads and getting the ball out of his hands. His time to throw average was 2.63 seconds, which ranked 11th in the NFL this week. But the Eagles utilized a lot of play action and rollouts and bootlegs to get the pocket moving and protect McKee and the backup offensive line. They had 15 play action attempts this week, which was second among all quarterbacks in week 18. And his time to throw on play action was 2.90 seconds, and his time to throw on non-play action passes was 2.48 seconds. So that really shows that when McKee was asked to drop back and pass, he was getting the ball out of his hands very quickly. Both of Tanner McKee's touchdowns came on play action. So let's take a look in detail at one of those specific plays. The Eagles had a really nice play design on E.J. Jenkins' first career touchdown. The Eagles aligned in a 3-by-1 tight end wing formation out of 12 personnel. Notice the tight split from Johnny Wilson. Typically, when we see this formation, the Eagles are more often than not looking to run the ball. Considering it's 2nd and 3 on the 7-yard line, the Giants anticipate the Eagles are going to run the ball, and they bring an extra safety into the box as a flat defender and E-gap run defender. That's exactly who the Eagles are looking to target with the rub concept. But this tight split from Johnny Wilson is a pre-snap indicator for the safety to look for a rub route. So instead of staying in a static formation, the Eagles motion E.J. Jenkins across the formation before motioning him back across at the snap. From here, the Eagles could be using Jenkins as a blocker on a variety of different plays. We've seen the Eagles use this motion to run outside zone toss, and we've also seen this motion to run duo, but they could be using a variety of different run plays. The point is, the defender has to consider all these possibilities during the motion, which can help distract away from the rub route the offense is trying to run. At the snap, Wilson runs at the safety's outside shoulder, but he does a great job to turn his shoulders and sell the route to avoid getting called for a pick play. The safety is caught a step behind Jenkins, and we see Jenkins tightrope the sideline for his first career touchdown. Now, on true drop back passes, McKee routinely played on time. He was ready to throw at the top of his drop and often threw before or at the time of receivers breaking on their routes. He was generally accurate, although he wasn't accurate on every throw, but he was generally accurate and he progressed through his reads quickly. Overall, he did a good job navigating the pocket, allowing himself to buy time or escape pressure long enough to find his checkdowns. He wasn't perfect with his pocket presence, but for his first start ever, I thought he was pretty good. Now, let's take a look in detail at some of Tanner McKee's specific plays. The Eagles utilized a lot of bootleg and rollouts in this game. We saw that on the first play of the game. The Eagles come out in 12 personnel with Goddard aligned as the number 1 receiver. They fake outside zone to the left and have McKee roll out to the right. They leave Grant Calcaterra in to block the end so that McKee has a better chance to get outside. Here's the difference between a quarterback like Jalen Hurts and Tanner McKee. If Jalen Hurts saw all this open space in front of him, he probably takes off with his legs. Or the defense is more likely to honor Hurts' rushing ability and come out of coverage to prevent the easy yards and open up an easier passing opportunity for Goddard. That's not the case with McKee's playstyle. Here McKee does a great job reading that the flat defender's back is turned, trying to recover from the run fake, and he zips in a pass behind the defender's ear hole. On to the next play, and it may be Tanner McKee's best play of the day on this 3rd and 15 conversion in the second quarter. On this play, the Eagles come out in an empty formation with the running back aligned as the number 1 receiver to get a man zone indicator. With the corner walked out over the running back, it's an indication the Giants will be in zone coverage. The Eagles then motion the running back into the backfield. The Giants have 2 safeties high, but you rarely see the safeties this close together pre-snap when running traditional 2-high coverages, and in this case, the Giants aren't running a traditional 2-high coverage. They're going to be running what's commonly referred to as a non-traditional Tampa 2 coverage. They're playing cover 2, but instead of both safeties being the deep half defender, one safety is going to play the deep half while the other safety rotates to close the middle hole. The corner on the strong side is now going to rotate to the deep half with the nickel sliding to become the flat defender. On the single receiver side, the corner is the flat defender and he's playing aggressively to try to give the safety enough time to rotate over. He must make sure the wide receiver takes an inside release to help out his safety. The problem is he bites up too hard in the flat and doesn't sink underneath the wide receiver running a deep out on 3rd and 15. Tanner McKee does an excellent job confirming the coverage post-snap. He's reading the weak safety to see the rotation before quickly glancing at the corner to check his depth before ripping an accurate pass on time down the sideline. Excellent play for McKee all around. I think the Eagles probably game planned this to take advantage of the Giants' corner, Deonte Banks, as he has shown in previous weeks that he'll play the flat too aggressively in long down and distance situations. This next play we're going to look at isn't as much about highlighting McKee's process as it is about highlighting McKee's ability to make throws in less than ideal situations. Here, he isn't able to follow through on his throw as there's a defender in his face, but he's still able to get the ball out on time and accurate to Goddard running the sail route. Let's look at the play design and Goddard's route though. The Eagles motion Ainias Smith across the formation and create a bunch look. They're running a sail concept where Dotson runs a deep corner that's really meant to be a clear out, with Goddard running the sail route and Ainias Smith running to the flat. The goal is to create a 3-level stretch on the defense. The Giants blow the coverage and leave Smith wide open in the flat, but McKee likes his matchup pre-snap and goes to Goddard, not to mention he didn't have time to progress to Smith anyway. Jahan Dotson struggles to get off the press, which has been an issue all year, but what makes this play work is Goddard's route running. From the tight view, we can see that the safety guarding Goddard is playing with outside leverage, and Goddard obviously needs to get outside. So in order to make that happen, Goddard uses a combination of a slight inside stem with body language indicating he's going to run an in-breaking route. The safety works to close his space and attach to Goddard, but as soon as he does, Goddard uses a club to throw the safety by, while at the same time using a tight arm over and extension to create separation at the break point. What's important to note is the subtlety of Goddard's arm extension. He's not using it to push or shove the defender away. Rather, he's extending it as he's breaking in the opposite direction to frame the defender. This framing allows him to control space and prevent the defender from closing the distance on the break. Goddard showed he's back and ready to roll in the playoffs with his 4 receptions for 55 yards on 13 snaps in this game. On this next play, Tanner McKee's play fake gets Jahan Dotson wide open on a dig route, but it's the footwork that really stands out on this play. McKee does a great job selling the run fake by letting the quarterback running back mesh simmer for an extra beat. The split flow action by the tight end also helps distract the second level defenders as well, as they have to fall back a gap in the run fits with the slicing tight end. You can see the gravity of both of those elements pulling up the linebackers and safety, creating space behind them. But McKee's footwork to pivot out quickly and be on platform to throw accurately is what makes this play work. A small but important detail is how wide McKee's base is. He could easily get his feet too wide, which would affect his ability to rotate through on the pass, but he keeps a good base and makes an excellent pass. You really see how important all of these elements are when looking at the tight view. The safety was inches away from deflecting the pass. In all, Tanner McKee was sacked just twice despite playing with an entire backup offensive line. A big part of that was due to McKee's ability to navigate the pocket and get to his outlets when pressured. Take this play for example. The Giants send a blitz from the opposite direction of where the line is sliding, meaning they're going to have an unblocked rusher. To make matters worse, Fred Johnson lets the end slant across his face, basically untouched. But McKee knows where the outlet is and quickly gets to Will Shipley in the flat, and he goes on to make a defender miss on his way for a 13-yard gain. McKee's ability to quickly get the ball where it needs to go will allow him the ability to survive in the NFL despite not being the most mobile quarterback in today's league. Now, McKee wasn't perfect on the day. When having to throw on the run, he was pretty consistently off target. Let's take this third down play for example. The Eagles are in empty and the Giants are running cover 0. McKee knows that the defense is going to have one extra rusher than they have blocker, so he checks into a rollout to run away from the unblocked blitzer. They're running clearouts with the outside receivers to give Goddard space to run an out route from the slot. The Eagles get what they want, but McKee puts a pass on Goddard's back hip. This is still a pass that Goddard should catch, but regardless, the ball placement gives the defender a better chance to punch the ball out. McKee's ball placement was also behind Ainias Smith on his touchdown on the first drive, as we see Smith have to turn around to corral this one. Ainias is able to just cross the goal line for a touchdown, but we see how the ball placement makes the catch harder while also exposing the ball to the defender pursuing from behind. This should have been a walk-in touchdown. McKee's ball placement throwing on the run was consistently behind his intended targets. The good news is, consistently missing in one spot is easier to fix than having a huge spread of off-target passes. Now, McKee also had some other plays that he definitely would want back. He was hesitant to throw or misreads a few times, and there's 2 instances of him throwing into double coverage. And he'll definitely need to limit his turnover-worthy play percentage if he wants to be a consistent backup quarterback in the NFL. That is one of the requirements of a backup quarterback. Do not turn the ball over and put the team in bad positions. But again, his first career start. Now, we should keep in mind that the Giants defense was playing with a lot of backup players as well, as only 5 starters played in this game. But Tanner McKee was also playing behind a backup offensive line, and at points in the game, they had moved on to their third string offensive lineman. But he was also playing with his rotational running backs, receivers, and tight ends as well. Although Jahan Dotson definitely benefited from a bigger role. He had 7 receptions on 11 targets for 94 receiving yards, and McKee's ability to play on time and accurately allowed Jahan Dotson's skills as a route runner to shine. I do wonder if there is a bigger role for Jahan Dotson moving on to next year, or was this potentially an audition for the Eagles to trade Jahan Dotson away in the offseason to a wide receiver needy team. I thought Jahan Dotson put a lot of good stuff on film to remind you of what he had done his rookie year. Now let's briefly look ahead at the playoff game against the Packers. And I say briefly because Eric and I will be going into much more detail later on this week. These two teams met in week 1 with the Eagles taking away the close victory, but these two teams are different in many ways than who they were in week 1. Looking at the Eagles, their called pass rate in week 1 was 52.7%, while their pass rate in week 6 through 15, which are the games where Jalen Hurts was able to finish, was 43.2%. In addition to that, on the other side of the ball, the Eagles defense gave up numerous big plays on blown assignments that was not characteristic of the defense after their bye week. Looking at the Packers, they're now going to be without Jair Alexander and Christian Watson, although Alexander has missed 10 games this season already, while Watson has missed a couple of games due to injury. The Packers rank highly on both offense and defense, and they have good players all over their roster. The Eagles opened as 3.5-point favorites and have been bet up to 4.5-point favorites before the news that Jalen Hurts is going to be back out of concussion protocol and playing. But let me know in the comments, what do you think the score of this Eagles-Packers game will be?